What is going on, everybody? Shwazy here, and in today's video I review the cheapest new car you can buy in the United States. Okay, so this is the 2023 Nissan Versa, and in an era where cars continue to grow in prices and sizing, Nissan has the answer to that, because you heard that correctly, this is the cheapest new car you can buy on the market. Now, we'll get into the details on the pricing in just a minute, but the base version with the manual transmission starts at just around $15,980. So this is definitely a bargain vehicle if you need a new car with the latest safety tech. You know, this is what you're looking at. And there's a couple competitors in this market as well, and we'll compare this Nissan Versa to the competition. Now, in today's video, we're going to do an outside inside look, talk about how it drives, some of the things I like, some of the things I dislike, and what options are included on the base versus this SR trim level, which is this particular vehicle standing in front of me. Now, let's start off with what the Versa is. It's actually a subcompact sedan, and this is the third generation of the Versa. So this generation came out back in 2019 as a 2020 model year, and in 2023 they decided to facelift the front end and update some of the styling, as well as offer some new standard features and optional equipment on the interior, which we'll discuss in today's video. All right, speaking of facelift, let's talk about some of the changes on the front end. So Nissan, first of all, updated its Nissan badge to the latest version, and as you can see here, the front end is a little bit different than the current outgoing generation or pre-facelift version of the Versa. They've updated with what they call the V-Motion grille, and they've kind of used this design language as they've updated a lot of their vehicles, including the Nissan Altima I reviewed, and I think it looks pretty good overall. All right, now let's talk about the color. Personally, I really like it. It's kind of like this gloss blue, gray, whitish color, and it matches the accents of this car very well. I think it's a very good looking subcompact sedan in this particular color, and in case you're wondering, it's called Gray Sky Pearl. Now, the length of this vehicle is just about 177 inches long, and the weight is about 2,700 pounds. So it's definitely a lot smaller and a lot lighter than a lot of other vehicles on the market today. Hence why it's called a subcompact sedan. All right, now let's talk about the exterior. There's three different trim levels. There's the S, the SV, and the SR. This one on the screen in front of you is the SR. It's the top of the line trim level, so it comes with some additional features that you may not get on the standard Versa. Let's briefly talk about what's included on this SR trim level. So first off, you get LED headlights and LED running lights. You've got this LED daytime running light across the top of the headlight. Looks really good. Personally, I prefer LED headlights because not only are they typically brighter at night when you're driving, but the LED accent light kind of brings it into the modern 21st century, because pretty much every car has LED running lights now. Also, with this SR trim level, you get automatic headlights as well. So once it gets dark, these will automatically turn on. Now, the other indicator of this being an SR trim, aside from this little badge over here on the front, is darkened chrome accents. So as you can see, the front end has a little bit more darkened chrome. Also, the side view mirrors are painted black instead of body color or black plastic. Another thing to mention about these side view mirrors is they are heated on the SR trim level, and you have a turn signal indicator as well. Also, the SR trim includes body painted door handles, so that way they match the exterior color of the vehicle. And overall, the SR trim level is supposed to be kind of the sportier trim in terms of appearance, and so that's why you have a lot of these black chrome accents on the outside. Now, coming to the back, you have this SR badge, but then you also have this little deck lid spoiler that's also painted the same color as the rest of the body. Now, personally, I kind of wish this was painted a little bit of a different color, because it essentially just merges with the entire deck lid, but it is nice they have a little bit of a spoiler on the Nissan Versa, even though it's definitely not necessary on this car. Now, coming to the wheels, I believe this is a first for 2023, is the Versa now comes with optional 17-inch wheels, and this is on the SR trim level. You also have this cool feature where, you know, you have TPMS on every single tire, of course, and it'll tell you what that pressure is on the interior, but with the SR trim level, as you're filling up the tire with air, let's say it's a cold morning, then it will honk the horn when it reaches the desired 32 or 35 PSI as recommended by the manufacturer. Now, speaking of the tires on this SR trim level, you got 205 50 R17 all-season tires, and these are disc brakes in the front, but sadly drum brakes over here on the rear. Now, they obviously do this for cost cutting, and this isn't the only vehicle on the market to have rear drum brakes. Another nice added feature with the SR trim level is remote start. So this is what the Nissan key looks like. It's pretty simple overall. It looks a little bit different than some of the other Nissan keys I've seen, so I think this is the updated version. And then of course you can have the key in your pocket because the SR trim comes with remote keyless entry. So you just simply tap this button to unlock it, close it, and then you tap this button to lock it. All right, so you might be saying that's great and all if I choose the SR trim level, but what if I have a pretty tight budget? What's included on the base S trim level? Well, let's talk about that. Well, starting off with the front end, the base S trim level does not come with LED headlamps or LED running lights. You're just going to get standard halogen headlights, which are perfectly fine, but they just don't look as good. Overall, the front end is going to remain mostly unchanged. You're still going to get the V-motion front grille, same hood. It's a pretty attractive shape overall. Coming over to the side, you're not going to have these 17-inch wheels and tires. You're only going to get 15 inches. Now, although you're stuck with the smaller size on the S trim, you still get TPMS on all tires, except it won't tell you the exact tire pressure on the inside. It'll just tell you that one of the tires is low. Now, in terms of the side view mirrors, they're not going to be this black painted color. They're actually just going to be black plastic. You're not going to have this turn signal indicator, and you're not going to have any type of heated functionality on the side view mirror, but they are still power mirrors, of course. And your door handles are going to be black plastic as well, so they're not going to match the body painted color. Now, in terms of styling, where the SR trim used a lot of the black chrome accents, the S trim uses the traditional chrome accents. So that's going to be the biggest difference on the outside. Now, coming to the back, the standard S trim level is not going to look much different than this one, aside from that rear deck lid spoiler. Even at the bottom here, you've got this simulated carbon fiber, which is a little bit silly on a subcompact sedan, but the standard S trim level also includes this same diffuser. All right, now before we jump inside, let's take a look under the hood and see what's powering the Nissan Versa. Well, it's the same exact engine for all three trim levels. We're talking a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine, no turbocharging, no supercharging. You got about 122 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque. Definitely pretty small numbers, but this is a pretty small car, and it's actually a little bit better than some of the competition in the same segment. Now, all of that power is sent through, you guessed it, an Xtronic CVT. So it is a continuously variable transmission, and even though CVTs are not my favorite, they do provide some pretty good fuel efficiency. And this car is no exception to that. We're talking 32 in the city, 40 on the highway for a combined 35. Now, all of that power is sent through the front wheels. Front wheel drive is the only option on the Versa. Okay, now let's make our way inside and talk about the interior of the Versa. Now, first off, let's start with the door panel. You do have a lot of black, but they do have some nice touches that we'll show off. First off, top of the door panel, this is all hard touch plastic, but you kind of expect that for a subcompact sedan. But where you're going to be resting your elbow, this is soft touch material. This is leather or simulated leather surfaces. And then as you can see here, you've got this fake stitching that goes all the way across on the door panel as well. This is kind of a hallmark of the SR trim level. Now, moving forward, you've got this simulated carbon fiber trim piece over here. And then you've got automatic power windows for all four doors, which is nice. And then the driver's side is one touch to open and close. And then you've got your window lock, lock and unlock buttons, and your power mirror controls. Now, the SR trim level has this chrome door handle instead of just the black plastic, which is nice. Now, moving further down, got a pretty decent sized storage compartment and a little cup holder slot for like a water bottle. And then this particular SR trim level has a 6-speaker audio system. Now, moving in, my particular tester has the electronics package, and so it has some additional lighting like this illuminated door seal. And then moving in towards the seat, these are called the Charcoal Sport cloth seats, and this is bespoke to the SR trim level. So as you can see, they've got different color red orange stitching on the headrest, and I really like the design of this seat. I mean, you've got the red with the black with the gray, the stripe that goes all the way down. Like I said, the SR trim level is kind of the sporty one, and you can tell that by just looking at the seats. Now, performance wise, it's exactly the same as the other trim levels, but it does look a little bit nicer inside. Now let's jump in and talk about the use of materials on the interior cabin. First off, closing this door sounds pretty good. It overall feels like a very solid vehicle. It doesn't really feel very cheap, even though there are places where, you know, there is hard touch plastic. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart on you. Now, start off on the dashboard over here. This is all hard touch plastic, but you can expect that for a subcompact sedan. This one does have the start stop button because this is the upgraded trim level. And you'll see here, I've got a digital and an analog display, and you saw there's a little Versa that does kind of a 360, and then you've got a 7-inch digital gauge cluster display on the left-hand side and an analog display on the right-hand side, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Starting off on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, you've got this air vent over here, and then you'll notice they've got this little trim piece over here, which is that, again, fake simulated leather with a little bit more of that red-orange stitching, which looks really nice. Moving below that, you got this little storage compartment. You could fit a phone or maybe a wallet or something like that in there. Now, moving towards the center, you've got a leather wrapped steering wheel over here on the SR trim, and you'll notice a little bit more of that orange stitching. It looks really nice. Now, the steering wheel looks a little bit different than prior generations. It is flat bottom for a certain reason. I honestly think that's to get a little bit more space on the inside rather than performance driving, but it still feels really good. Nice 10 and 2 notches. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll have your buttons to control your audio controls and your set of buttons to control this 7-inch gauge cluster. Now, it's a pretty simple system overall. You've got your audio, your driving habits like your eco mode, what your range is looking at, your safety features, and then various settings that you can customize in here, and then it goes back to your tachometer. Now, you don't really need a tachometer here because this is a CVT. There's not really any gears, but this does simulate kind of a gear shift-like function when you're accelerating. I do find it funny that you have this brightness controller sticking out of the actual instrument gauge cluster. That's something I haven't seen for probably about 10 years. Below these set of buttons are your seek track buttons, your back button, and then on the right-hand side, this is primarily for your cruise control functionality. So you activate it here, set the distance here, and then you can regulate the speed. Now, this does have adaptive cruise control, which is nice, and it does have lane departure warning. So as you're exiting a lane, it will vibrate the steering wheel, letting you know that you're crossing into a different lane. Now, it doesn't have any type of lane centering technology, but that is something reserved for much more expensive vehicles. Got this nice new Nissan emblem over here in the middle, and overall a nice steering wheel. It is tilt and telescoping, which is not something that Nissan even offers on its Frontier truck, but it does offer on the Versa, which is nice. Now, moving in towards this center, this is where you have the upgraded 8-inch touchscreen. And I gotta say, it's a very quick and snappy system overall, primarily because there's really not that much going on. You've got your clock here, your radio functionality, AM, FM, Bluetooth, that's pretty much it. And then what I do like is you have quick access buttons over here on the left and right side. So if you want to quickly pull up your phone, you push that button, you know, your audio, and then you can go through the various XM, AM, FM, USB, Bluetooth. This does have wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So it's not wireless, but they still do offer that. So you don't have any type of in-house navigation system, but honestly, the in-house navigation system never really worked that well. Physical volume button, and I gotta say the material quality here is pretty good. You know, it's not as like cheap, flimsy plastic like you would expect. Over here on the right-hand side, you have a camera button, but it only opens up your camera settings. It doesn't actually open up the rear view camera, your brightness, your setting button. So lots of redundancies here, and then a nice track button that you can also use to cycle through your settings. Now, moving above that, you got 2 air vents, and then on the passenger side, what I do like is you've got a little bit more of that fake orange stitching that goes all the way to the passenger air vent, and then this is, again, a leather, you know, soft touch material. This is something I've seen on like the pretty high-end Mitsubishi Outlander, and they have it here on a subcompact sedan. So I like that, you know, where you're staring at, like this over here on the gauge cluster, the steering wheel, this section of the dashboard, that's all soft touch or nice looking material. So they've really done a good job to make it look a little bit more premium than just, you know, your entry-level cheap commuter car. Now, moving further down, you've got your automatic climate control here on the SR trim, and then your temperature settings over here. Very simple, easy to use. You do have a digital display here that'll show you the temperature you're selecting. But again, a really nice rotary knob here for your climate controls. It's got like a rubber surface to it. Doesn't feel cheap or flimsy. And then you've got heated seats over here on the SR trim level. So that's a nice add-on for the driver and passenger side. You've also got a air vent control over here. There's no dual zone climate control. Moving below that, you've got 2 USB ports. It's a USB-A and a USB-C. And then opening this up, cigarette style lighter. And then this one being the SR trim level, you've got got a wireless charging pad, and it does fit the largest phone in the market, which is the Galaxy S22 Ultra. For a subcompact vehicle, that is kind of impressive. And then a conventional gear selector, feels really good. It is leather wrapped, and it's got this fake aluminum up top. Moving below that, you've got 2 cup holders and a standard handbrake. And then this one, being the SR trim level, comes with a center arm console. Now, it is incredibly small, so you can probably only fit one arm over here, so it's kind of pointless, but at least the driver is able to use this pretty soft padded leather armrest. Now, opening this up, it is a very small compartment. I mean, you could probably fit maybe a wallet and one phone in there, and that's pretty much it. But the nice thing is you have a USB-C port over here, and it is still nice that you have a center arm console as compared to the standard S trim level. Over on the passenger side, you've got a glove compartment, and then moving above you, well, there's obviously no sunroof here, but you've got this SOS button, and then you've got your typical lighting controls. Opening up your sun visor, you don't have a light, but you do have a mirror, and overall a pretty nice front seat. Now let's move into the second row. All right, jumping into the second row, same use of materials over here, hard touch plastic, but again, you still have soft touch materials over here on the door panel where you're going to be resting your elbow, which is pretty impressive because not all the competition, even in the crossover space, offers soft touch material here. Get a little bit more of that fake simulated carbon fiber, automatic windows up, down, and then a little spot for a cup holder, and then your speaker grill down here. Now, taking a look at the seats, same nice material, not as nice as the front row. You don't have any cool like race stripe that goes down the middle, but still some of that red with that gray with that black. Pretty nice interior overall. I'm impressed with the second row and how they didn't just skimp on the quality. Now, jumping back here, this is a subcompact sedan, but I gotta say there's quite a good amount of space back here. I'm about 5'9". I'm sitting in the same position I would be sitting in as I'm driving, and I've got a couple inches of space back here. Nissan says there's about 31 inches behind the first row, and then in terms of headroom, Nissan says there's about 36 inches of headroom. Now, I will say, me being 5'9", I'm just about an inch shy of touching the ceiling. So if you're taller than that, if you're 6 foot tall, you may have to kind of sink down a little bit to avoid hitting the roof. But for being a subcompact, pretty roomy in the second row. Now, there is no map pocket behind the driver's seat, but there is one behind the passenger seat. No rear air vents, but my Ford Bronco doesn't have that. But you do have another USB-C port back here. So there's 3 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port inside of this vehicle, which is impressive because it's a subcompact sedan. Now, unfortunately, you don't have any type of center arm console, but to compensate for that, you do have cup holders in the door. Now, jumping into the cargo area, this actually impressed me with how large it is. So this is 15 cubic feet of space, and I gotta say it's a pretty deep compartment, so it might be kind of hard to tell on camera, but the opening is pretty large overall. You could easily fit some big luggage, and then climbing back here, it's really deep, so you could easily fit maybe 3, 4, 5 different pieces of luggage or duffel bags back here and not have any problems. I gotta say this is probably one of the largest in the segment in terms of cargo volume. Also, I should mention that the SR trim, you can fold down the second row seats 60/40, so that will provide even more space to fit longer luggage in the back. All right, so you may be wondering what's included in the base S trim level, because I'm sitting in the SR, so it obviously has some more features. Well, let's talk about that. Now, surprisingly, the S trim actually comes with quite a few features that we'll talk about. First off, you can get a 5-speed manual transmission only on the S trim level, but you can of course also get this CVT transmission. It's just gonna cost a little bit more. Now, you're also gonna get cruise control as standard. It's just not gonna be an adaptive cruise control. You'll also get power door locks and power windows, and you'll also get air conditioning. Now, instead of the 8-inch screen, you're gonna get a smaller 7-inch screen, and you're gonna have to pay a little bit extra to get the optional wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now, although it's gonna be smaller, you still get Bluetooth as standard, and you've still got 3 USB ports on the inside and an auxiliary jack. You've also got a 4-speaker audio system instead of the 6-speaker on the SR. But unfortunately, you won't have this 7-inch gauge cluster display. You're just gonna get an analog speedometer and tachometer. But you'll still get this simulated carbon fiber trim piece. You still get a tilt and telescoping wheel, 6-way adjustable driver's seat, also have voice activation as standard. But if you need the center arm console, it's gonna cost you about $320 on top of the S trim level. Now, there is one package that you can get on the S trim level, and that's called the S Plus package. It's only available on the base trim. And essentially what that does is it upgrades the standard 7-inch touchscreen to a 7-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto functionality. And that trim package also updates your exterior wheels. Now, what's more impressive to me is the standard safety tech that comes on the base trim. So first off, you've got 10 airbags as standard. You've also got lane departure warning that I mentioned earlier. You've of course got the rear view camera, but you've also got rear emergency braking. So if it senses something coming at you, it will automatically apply the brakes so you don't hit that individual or object behind you. You've also got emergency braking with pedestrian detection, and you've got automatic high beams. And that is all standard on the S trim level. All right, now the moment you've been waiting for, let's talk about the pricing. So the standard S trim with the 5-speed manual transmission, that one starts at $15,980, as I mentioned earlier. Of course, you can get the automatic transmission or the CVT, and that one is $17,650. You can get the S Plus package that I mentioned earlier for about $1,190. And then if you step up to the SV trim, that one's the mid-tier. That one's around $19,270. And then stepping up to this SR trim level, not that much higher. You're looking at $19,970. Personally, I would pick this SR trim if you have the few extra grand for it, because it includes some of the most modern technological features like blind spot monitoring, like that gauge cluster display, nicer seats. It just looks better overall, but it is definitely a little bit more expensive. Now, mine has that electronics package with the additional lighting and a rear view mirror with the HomeLink system. And because of that, the vehicle standing in front of me after destination is about $22,460. But this is pretty much the most expensive version that you can get of the Nissan Versa. Now, in case you're wondering about crash test ratings, this thing is actually pretty safe. It got a 5-star from the NHTSA, and the IIHS rated it as good. Now, in case you're wondering about reliability, it actually received a great rating at 82 out of 100 from US News and JD Power and Associates. Now, in terms of warranty, it's not the best in the segment. You're talking standard 3-year, 36,000 mile bumper to bumper limited warranty and a 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. All right, now let's get behind the wheel of the 2023 Nissan Versa and show you what it's like behind the driver's seat. Okay, so setting off in the 2023 Versa. Now, first off, I gotta say the seating position is really nice. It doesn't feel like you're cramped or in a super small, tight vehicle. It also feels very maneuverable in a parking lot. It doesn't feel like it's very large because, well, it's not. This is a very small vehicle. So if you guys have driven anything like, you know, maybe a Honda Civic from 10 years ago or something along those lines, this is going to feel very familiar to you. Now, what I do like is everything is within reach, because this being a compact, you know, you can easily reach the passenger side, you can easily reach this infotainment screen, and it kind of makes me miss driving small vehicles because they're just more maneuverable than the giant behemoths that we're used to driving on a daily basis. Okay, now, as you may hear, you know, because of that CVT, this thing makes a lot of noise. You know, when you're revving it, I will say. When you're just driving in day-to-day traffic, you know, we're just about to drive over these train tracks, it's actually pretty composed, pretty quiet. You know, of course, one of the easiest ways to cut costs is to reduce sound deadening, and I'm sure they did that in this vehicle, but at lower speeds, you really don't notice it. And the suspension is incredibly compliant, very soft when you're going, you know, below 50 miles an hour. But when you're accelerating, this thing does make a lot of noise, and that's just a side effect of a CVT transmission. They're horribly loud. But the benefit to having a CVT is, for one, you don't really notice the gear shifts because there are no real gears, but you also get really good fuel economy. I mean, this one at 40 miles per gallon is truly impressive. And so if you're just using this as a daily driver or commuter, you know, it's going to be amazing in terms of your gas expenses. Now, what I have noticed is, you know, from 0 to 40 miles an hour, this thing is actually pretty peppy. Like, I can easily merge in and out of traffic and not have any issues. And honestly, it's not very loud either. The story becomes a little bit different when you get it on the freeway. All right, so here we are at a stoplight. It's about to turn green. We're going to accelerate. Let me show you what it feels and sounds like. Now, I will say I wasn't pedal to the floor there, but you could tell it's not the quickest to get up to speed. But again, people buying this car aren't going to really care about that, right? You're going to have enough power to drive this in day-to-day traffic. You also have a lot of tech here. I love the infotainment screen. It's very snappy, very easy to use. You got Bluetooth capabilities here. You've got blind spot monitoring. You've got an AC that blows really, really cold. Very good job there. You got heated seats. I mean, what more could you want from an entry-level vehicle that costs around 20 grand? So let's do another acceleration here. I mean, I'm pedal to the floor. And we made it to 70. So took a while. That was uphill. It is pretty warm outside. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but this is not a car that you want to do any type of drag racing in. Now, the story becomes a little bit different when you're on the freeway. First off, passing power is okay. It's really that 0 to 60 that takes the longest time. But then the road noise gets a little bit quieter and the vehicle becomes a little bit more rough over speed bumps. So whereas at lower speeds, it feels very comfortable, very compliant, higher speeds, it feels a little bit more jittery, a little bit more bouncy. That's something that I wish was a little bit better, but you got to consider the price point here. I mean, nothing in this same price point does a better job than the Versa. I mean, this is probably one of the best ranking in terms of its subcompact competitors. And, you know, you have all the tech here. I've got adaptive cruise control, I've got a digital display, and it's actually really good quality. Got really good fuel economy. I mean, this is a really good bargain if you're wanting a new vehicle and you don't want to break the bank. Honestly, it surprises me how many things come with this vehicle at a starting price below $20,000. All right, so to finish off this video, what are my thoughts on the Versa and would I recommend it? Well, overall, this thing actually kind of surprised me. I mean, knowing this is going to be the cheapest vehicle you can buy, I expected it to be a little bit more lackluster or cut more corners. And honestly, it's not a bad first vehicle, or maybe a vehicle for your child that just turned 16, or, you know, whatever situation you're in. This really does come packed with lots of standard safety tech, really good technology. Also, did I mention phenomenal fuel economy for a non-hybrid engine? Yes, the engine is a little bit slow. Honestly, it leaves quite a bit to be desired, but comparing this to the Mitsubishi Mirage or the Kia Rio, it either has the same or more horsepower than those competition, and you've got more standard safety tech and more front row legroom than like the Kia Rio, for example. You also get a relatively roomy second row seat and a pretty large cargo capacity at 15 cubic feet. So honestly, if you're in the market for a new vehicle because you want the newest safety tech, newest reliability, then you really can't go wrong with the Versa. I think Nissan knows its segment here, and I think it did knock it out of the park if you're looking for an affordable new car. You know, in today's day and age where the average vehicle is pushing $50,000, to get one for less than half of that with some of the modern amenities is truly impressive, and I'm glad Nissan was able to do it. But let me know your thoughts on the Nissan Versa. Would you take this over the competition, which is starting to dwindle down in favor of larger crossovers? I'm curious to know what you're thinking down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also check me out on all the social media at Schwazy_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay Schwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.